Welcome to the Bro Code Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, because this is where the real talk begins. Gear up!
What's good, fam? It's your boy, Terry Lester, and you're tapped into another fire episode of the Bro Code Podcast, where we keep it realer than real, louder than your group chat, and way too grown for the nonsense. We are officially back from vacation. It's June 30th, 2025, and let me tell you, if you ain't locked in right now, you're missing the sauce, the wisdom, and the wild takes that only the Bro Code crew can serve up. We got the vibes, the laughs, and the straight talk your timelines too scared to say out loud. You know how we do, breaking down everything from hip-hop headlines, relationship red flags, boss moves, and those barbershop debates that get real spicy. Ain't no cap over here, just culture, connection, and a whole lot of code. So turn your volume all the way up, pull up a chair, or better yet, grab a drink. Text your group chat and tell them Bro Code's live right now. Because we're about to kick this thing off with that energy you can't fake and the truth you didn't even know you needed. Let's get into it.
Yes, T. Finally back from vacation, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, Jackson and T, and audience, let me tell you, Punta Cana was very beautiful. Our audience, stay tuned for tomorrow's podcast, K.L.P. Aftermath, because I will dabble more into the whole trip and the debacle at the airport. I didn't know if I was going to make the show. Honestly, I really didn't. Because, typically for our audience who don't know, sometimes we like to pre-record the show just depending on our schedule. Sometimes we like to do it live. But I was stuck at the airport, or stuck in the plane for 6 hours, and then stuck at the airport, Savannah Airport. And I was very, very sad about it because, like I told my crew where I was going to vacation with, I said, I got to get back to Atlanta. I got to get rested. I got to go to the studio. I have work to do now. But rest assured to a lot of people, yeah, I did make it back to, obviously, here in Atlanta, where our studios and our headquarters are at. So it's been a crazy few days trying to get back home. So I say to a lot of people right there, if you are thinking about traveling right now, it may not be a good idea to travel quite right now. Well, maybe, because today is Monday, so maybe the airport's probably listened up since then. But you can only imagine, like 400 to 700 flights getting canceled. People are stressed. I felt bad for the people who had kids, right? Because a lot of people with kids, they have kids, so they have to worry about how they gonna feed the kids, where they gonna go. Like people had a lot of things to be worried about. So I'm blessed to had a successful landing. First and foremost, I know a lot of people were upset. I think a lot of people shouldn't blame the flight attendants and the people that work for these airlines, that work for corporate airlines, and the pilots itself. This is not their fault. They got to do their job. There's nothing much they can do but do their job. So I know a lot of people were very upset with the with flights attendants and pilots. Like, it was as if it was their fault, and it wasn't their fault. So like I say, back home, very, very excited for another podcast, Bro Code Podcast. Again, real quick, I know I got to do this plug, guys. Check out the keynote that came out this morning. The keynote, the K.L.P. Entertainment keynote. I was in one of the offices at headquarters here in Atlanta. And of course, I expressed to you guys what's coming up next for K.L.P. Entertainment when it comes down to our movies, our podcasts, our talk shows. So much content is coming out of K.L.P. Entertainment, and you guys don't want to miss out on it. So I announced what was coming next within the keynote. So you guys have to check it out. You have to take a look at it. You have to take a look at it because K.L.P. Entertainment, this business, we're growing, and I'm very, very excited for it. So I'm very thankful for you, Terry, and you, Jackson. You guys, you're doing your thing. I love it. So let's get to it.
What's good, y'all? It's your boy Jackson Smith, back in the booth and ready to talk that talk with the fam. You know the vibes. It's the Bro Code, where the mic is hot, the convo's hotter, and the code is sacred. We got the culture, the comedy, the clapbacks, and we keep it all the way G. So sit back, tap in, and let's get into it.
True, Jackson. Here's my top story. NBA free agency officially begins Monday at 6 p.m. A. Which teams will make the biggest splashes? Will the Los Angeles Lakers finally get a rim-running center to pair with Luka Doncic and LeBron James? Which franchises will make a run at restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga? Will the Indiana Pacers bring back center Miles Turner? And what will the Brooklyn Nets do with all that cap space? ESPN NBA insiders Chris Herring, Zach Cram, Bobby Marks, and Kevin Pelton are breaking down how every team can win its offseason, including one move each franchise should make this summer to help ensure it does. How they ace their offseason, with all 15 players under full NBA contract through 2025-26 and just one rotation member, the indispensable Alex Caruso, older than age 27 in the top 10 in playoff minutes. Extensions are the Thunder's main priority. Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are eligible for rookie extensions, while Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could sign a Supermax designated veteran extension now or wait until 2026 and add 5 full years to his deal. Getting all three signed would keep Oklahoma City's core together through its prime. One move they should make: try to persuade Gilgeous-Alexander, Holmgren, and Williams to take slightly less than their max. Certainly, the Thunder should max everyone if necessary, but getting discounts in the second apron era has important implications for how much of Oklahoma City's supporting cast will stick around. How they ace their offseason, with Naz Reid returning on a new 5-year, $125 million deal. Minnesota is in a tricky financial position, as both Julius Randle and Nickeil Alexander-Walker can enter free agency. Randle has a player option. It's possible that the Timberwolves will end up retaining all three players, but that would be a tight fit and compromise future salary space. It would make more sense to focus on Reid and Randle and count on rising sophomores Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. to fill in for Alexander Walker next season. One move they should make: replacing Randle's player option with a 3-year pact plus a non-guaranteed 4th year, as Bobby recently proposed, would strike the right balance between a push to win in the present and a desire to remain flexible in the future. Randle is one of the sturdiest regular season contributors in the league, and he leveled up as a valuable playoff performer this spring. How they ace their offseason: they should heed the advice of Nikola Jokic. We definitely need to figure out a way to get more depth. Jokic said after losing in the second round, "It seems like the teams that have longer rotations, the longer benches, are the ones who are winning. Indiana, OKC, Minnesota. The Nuggets reserves average the 3rd fewest regular season minutes and 4th fewest points per game. Improving the depth, however, comes with roadblocks." Similar to last offseason, the Nuggets' options once again consist of relying on their former draft picks, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, and Darren Holmes II, along with a $5.7 million tax mid-level and veteran minimum exceptions to sign free agents. They could explore the trade market, but that would likely come at the cost of starter Michael Porter Jr. Because the Nuggets are a first apron team, they are not allowed to take back more money in a trade. One move they should make: first, they can't make the same mistake as last year and sign a player to the $5.7 million exception who is not part of the rotation. Dario Saric signed the same exception and averaged the fewest minutes in his career. Though the Nuggets will get a boost with last year's first-round pick, Holmes, returning after an Achilles injury, there is still a priority to find a backup center to Jokic. The Nuggets should use the tax mid-level to sign Luke Kornet to a 2-year, $11.7 million contract. The free agent big man averaged 6.0 points and 5.3 rebounds in only 18 minutes per game last season for Boston. The Celtics were plus 14.3 points per 100 possessions when he was on the court. How they ace their offseason: theoretically, they could do it by keeping their roster fully intact, but that would cost more than $250 million in luxury taxes for this coming season alone. That's likely untenable in any scenario, let alone one where the 64-win Cavs are coming off a second-round playoff defeat. The likelier outcome is Cleveland finding a way forward as it trims payroll and parts ways with key player or two, as Boston did with Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, to get under the dreaded second apron. One move they should make: assuming the club's ownership is opposed to paying an exorbitant tax bill, expect to see at least one key rotation player, Jarrett Allen, Max Struss, or possibly both, on the move to alleviate the cap crunch. The Cavs have signaled they're unlikely to bring back free agent Ty Jerome, both by trading Isaac Okoro for Lonzo Ball and by locking up Sam Merrill on a 4-year deal. Key moves as Cleveland awaits the return of Darius Garland following toe surgery. Anyone else the Cavs hold onto will merely drive next season's salary number higher. How they ace their offseason. You can make the argument Houston has done it already. In a period of 2 weeks, the Rockets traded for Kevin Durant and agreed to new contracts for Fred VanVleet, Aaron Holiday, Jayshawn Tate, and Jeff Green. They also signed coach Ime Udoka to an extension. The Durant trade was significant not just because the team acquired a top 10 player, but also because its depth was kept largely intact. One move they should make. Let's expand this to multiple moves. The first is to sign Dorian Finney-Smith, if he opts out his contract with the Lakers, to a 2-year, $28 million contract. The VanVleet restructured contract they reduced his $44.9 million team option to nearly $20 million. Gives Houston the flexibility to use the full non-tax mid-level exception and not exceed the first apron. The team would, however, need to waive the $8 million non-guaranteed contract to Jock Landale. The second and most important move is to sign Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., and Tari Eason to extensions. Smith and Eason are eligible to sign until October 20, and Durant has until June 30th, 2026, to take a 2-year deal. How they ace their offseason. Every key player from the Pacers' finals run is set to return in 2025 to 26, with 2 exceptions. The Pacers can't do anything about Tyrese Halliburton's absence after the star point guard ruptured an Achilles in Game 7. But they can ensure Miles Turner is back by negotiating a new long-term deal for the free agent center. This is a must for the Pacers. They have no other depth at the position, and if Turner leaves, there will be no easy replacement available externally either. One move they should make, re-sign Turner for 3 years and $80 million. In a vacuum, Turner might be worth more. He could reasonably ask for $90 million over 3 years, but a lack of cap space around the league means he could struggle to incite a bidding contest. This compromise offer would give Turner a hefty raise and long-term security, while helping Indiana save money it'll need for other extensions next summer and beyond. How they ace their offseason. Aside from finding a coach and implementing a new system ahead of the campaign, the Knicks need a deeper bench. The constant critique of ex-coach Tom Thibodeau was that he didn't go to his reserves nearly enough. And there was likely truth to that, as the Knicks' backup scored less and got fewer minutes than those on any other club. But in trading for Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns last summer, the front office made the team more top-heavy. As the recent title runs by the Thunder and the Celtics showed, more depth is necessary to win all. One move they should make, use the $5.7 million exception, but potentially stay just below the second apron to land a player. Perhaps that means adding a sharpshooter such as Luke Kennard or a wing like Bruce Brown, players good enough to start, but who could just as easily come off the bench. Separately but related, the team must figure out a way forward with Bridges, who is eligible for an extension. How high are the Knicks willing to go on a new deal for him? And is there a world where dealing him for additional roster depth makes sense? How they ace their offseason. The Jimmy Butler 3 trade reopened the Warriors' window to contend, but also exacerbated the team's need for shooting in the front court to complement Butler and Draymond Green. Getting it this offseason could be challenging, particularly with little matching salary, unless Golden State can strike a complicated sign-in trade involving restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga. The Warriors' best play might be re-signing Kuminga to a contract that keeps him below the second apron and can be traded at the deadline to get what they need. One move they should make, re-signing veterans Kevin Looney and Gary Payton II for 1 year at the veterans minimum. If possible, because of their experience, Looney and Payton would make nearly as much at the minimum as they were going elsewhere for smaller exceptions. Yet only $2.3 million would hit Golden State's cap sheet. How they ace their offseason, besides signing Luka Doncic to an extension August. 2. Finding the next Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively to complement the All-NBA guard. GM Rob Pelinka was up front during his end-of-season news conference in acknowledging that signing or trading for a center is the first priority. We know this offseason one of our primary goals is going to add size in our front court at the center position. Finding one will be tricky. Los Angeles has only the $5.7 million exception to use on a below-average class of free agent centers. It does, however, have more than $60 million in expiring contracts. Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, and, if he opts in for next season, Dorian Finney-Smith, along with a 2031 or 2032 unprotected first-round pick. The Lakers also have a right to swap first-round picks in 5 of the next 7 seasons. One move they should make: trade for the Trailblazers' Robert Williams III, and then sign Brook Lopez to the tax mid-level exception. Yes, the Lakers will be bringing in 2 starting centers, but Williams has played 40 or fewer games in 3 straight seasons. Because the Lakers are over the first apron and not allowed to take back more money in a trade, any package for Williams would start with some combination of Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, and or Shake Milton. How they ace their offseason: the Clippers' top priority is to extend James Harden, then figure out how to improve an already strong roster at the edges. The Clippers have an excellent two-way core but little back-end depth, which could prove especially harmful given the roster's age and injury history. If Nicholas Batum, who declined his $4.9 million player option, leaves this summer, Bogdan Bogdanović and Derek Jones Jr. will be the only reliable reserves. One move they should make: bring free agent point guard Chris Paul back to Los Angeles, reuniting him with Harden and improving the team's backcourt depth. Last season, when Harden and Kawhi Leonard were on the bench, the Clippers scored just 107.6 points per 100 possessions per cleaning the glass, which ranked in the 14th percentile league-wide. Even as he enters his 40s, Paul is a strong table setter, has a welcome history with the franchise, and just played all 82 games for the San Antonio Spurs. How they ace their offseason: the Pistons, fresh off a playoff berth and one of the biggest turnarounds in NBA history, don't have to make a major splash to come out winners this summer. They simply need to carefully prioritize which of their free agent wings, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dennis Schroeder, they want to bring back, while potentially making one external signing for a difference maker. For those who'd like to see them do more, keep in mind they'll be getting 23-year-old guard Jaden Ivey, who averaged almost 18 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists on good efficiency, back from injury. One move they should make: sign restricted free agent Santi Aldama away from the Grizzlies. It wouldn't be easy to snatch Aldama from Memphis, but the floor-spacing 24-year-old would give the Pistons added reliability at the backup power forward spot, a position they were hindered at during the playoffs when Isaiah Stewart went down with an injury. How they ace their offseason: the Celtics have already accomplished the most important task of their offseason, ducking under the second apron by trading Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday for Georges Niang and Anthony Simons, respectively. Those moves project to save Boston some $260 million next season in combined salary and taxes. But with Porzingis gone and Al Horford and Luke Kornet hitting free agency, Boston has no reliable big men on its roster and should aim to fill that hole while staying below the punitive second apron threshold. One move they should make: if the Celtics can reroute Niang and trade Sam Hauser, who should be a desirable target as a career 42% three-point shooter and underrated defender, it will open around $18 million in additional space. That would leave enough room to re-sign Horford and Kornet, keeping Boston's roster framework in place for Jason Tatum's return in a year. How they ace their offseason: the Magic are similar to the Rockets in that they got most of their business done before the official start of free agency. They added Desmond Bane and then drafted Jace Richardson and Noah Penda. They're also likely to sign Paolo Banchero to a 5-year, $247 million rookie max extension. Even with the Bane addition and Jalen Suggs healthy, there is still a need to sign a veteran playmaker. Last season, the Magic averaged the fewest assists per game in the league. One move they should make: sign Tyus Jones to a 2-year, $14 million contract with a player option in the final season. Jones had a 5-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio last season in Phoenix and has averaged at least 10 points in 3 straight seasons. He has ranked in the 90th percentile in 5 of the past 7 seasons in assists to usage per cleaning the glass. How they ace their offseason: the combination of trading for Anthony Davis and landing Cooper Flagg with a no. One pick has left the Mavericks with a crowd in the front court and not enough ball handling to fill in during Kyrie Irving's knee injury absence. Ideally, Dallas would swap Daniel Gafford, trade eligible despite striking an extension, and forward depth for a guard who can run the show while Irving is sidelined and then slide to the wing when Irving returns. One move they should make. Drew Holiday would have fit that role, but so could his former Celtics teammate Derek White. With a package of Gafford, PJ, Washington and draft picks tempt Boston into moving White, who will be 32 by 2026-27. White better fits Mavs GM Nico Harrison's timetable, which is built around Davis and Irving. How they ace their offseason. The Grizzlies already made one of the biggest moves of the offseason when they dealt third-star Desmond Bane to Orlando for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope Cole Anthony for first-round picks and a first-round swap. With that move in the books, Memphis' next priority is to lock in an extension for star big man Jaren Jackson Jr. One move they should make. An extension and possible renegotiation for Jackson, the former Defensive Player of the Year, who would otherwise be set to hit unrestricted free agency next summer. Memphis can make trades. John Conchar could be a candidate to be dealt, and renounce certain free agent cap holds, Luke Kennard and Marvin Bagley III, for example, to get further under the limit and offer Jackson more money in an extension. Securing him and striking a new deal for restricted free agent Santi Aldama would be steps in the right direction. How they ace their offseason. Keep Giannis Antetokounmpo happy. The Bucks will be hard-pressed to build a fully competitive roster next season with Damian Lillard making $54 million while rehabbing from an Achilles tear, but they will be more concerned about surviving the gap year without a Giannis trade request. That means using every lever at their disposal to round out a more competitive roster around Antetokounmpo, including decisions on whether to re-sign or replace free agents Brook Lopez and Gary Trent Jr. One move they should make. Trade for Cavaliers forward Dean Wade, who would fit into Milwaukee's $7.2 million trade exception. Wade might be expendable in Cleveland, a second-apron team that would save a lot of money by trading him, but he'd be an excellent fit in Milwaukee's front court. Wade is injury-prone, but he's a solid shooter, 37% on three-pointers in his career, and stout defender, and the Cavaliers have consistently been better with him on the floor. How they ace their offseason. By keeping the path clear for a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. There's no reason to believe, based on current reporting, that the Bucks star will be moved imminently. But with their extra draft picks coming years into the future, the Spurs can afford to wait. San Antonio will want to keep its options open by acquiring players this summer via trade, with a non-taxpayer mid-level exception, who will return their value if included in an Antetokounmpo deal down the road. The more they can help space the floor for the Spurs' young guards and De'Aaron Fox in the meantime, the better. One move they should make. Pair Victor Wembanyama with his frontcourt partner on the French national team, Gershon Yabusel. Yabusel is an unrestricted free agent, and the Philadelphia 76ers would have to use an exception to re-sign him for appreciably more than the minimum, making him a realistic target for San Antonio. How they ace their offseason. Find a way to acquire restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga. The Heat do not have the cap space to sign Kuminga outright to an offer sheet and would have to entice Golden State with a package of players and draft picks. The Heat are allowed to trade up to 2 future firsts. The addition of Kuminga would bring athleticism to a starting lineup that consists of Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, and K.L.P. One move they should make. There are complexities in trading for Kuminga. First, because Miami intends to sign Davion Mitchell to a 2-year, $24 million contract. It is right at the first apron, which will be triggered in a sign-in trade. Second, Kuminga's contract going out would count as only half of his salary for trade purposes. Because of this, a third team, perhaps Brooklyn, would have to take back a player such as Duncan Robinson to make the deal work. How they ace their offseason. The Hawks already took one enormous step in the right direction this past week by nabbing rim protector and floor spacer Kristaps Porzingis from the salary-shedding Celtics in a 3-team deal. The next step forward is twofold. Try to extend 4-time All-Star Trae Young on a less-than-max deal. A reasonable pursuit, given the team's repeated trips to the play-in round with him making max money, and to land a solid veteran backup for the floor general to bolster rotation that should feel good about its chances to make noise in a wide-open, injury-plagued East. One move they should make. Try their best to swing a deal to have Minnesota sign and trade free agent wing Nickeil Alexander-Walker to Atlanta. The Wolves just committed 5 years and $125 million to Naz Reid and still have to figure how they want to handle Julius Randle moving forward. The financial questions facing Minnesota could allow the Hawks, who are beneath the cap and have a $13 million trade exception from when they sent Bogdan Bogdanovic to the Clippers, to swoop in and make a key acquisition. Alexander Walker is precisely the sort of versatile player worth adding to their improved rotation. How they ace their offseason. For all the focus on the Kings' lack of a true point guard, they were 12th in offensive rating after the All-Star break. A 22nd ranked defense caused Sacramento to fall short of its second playoff spot in the past 3 seasons. With below-average defenders as their leading scorers, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Domantas Sabonis, the Kings need to support them with as many quality defenders as possible. Ideally, they would add another player with forward size for when Keegan Murray is deployed defensively on the perimeter. One move they should make, a deal built around sending DeRozan to Dallas for PJ, Washington, and draft picks. The Mavericks need to take back less salary than they send out complicated parameters, but Dallas could include Klay Thompson or Najee Marshall and Dwight Powell to make a deal work. How they ace their offseason. 3 bright spots emerged from the 76ers' otherwise rotten season. Jared McCain, who led all rookies in point per game. Quentin Grimes, who averaged 21.9 PPG after arriving in a mid-season trade. And Gershon Yabusel, who was a strong all-around contributor in his return to the NBA. McCain will be back next season after tearing a meniscus, but Philadelphia must be proactive to retain the other 2. Grimes is a restricted free agent, and Yabusel is unrestricted. One move they should make. Beyond re-signing Grimes and Yabusel, the 76ers could take a bigger swing by building a trade around Paul George for Michael Porter Jr. This deal would make sense for both sides. The Nuggets have been interested in George before, and he'd give them a higher ceiling around Nikola Jokic, while the 76ers would get younger and gain future financial flexibility with Porter. After how George's first season in Philadelphia went, the team should pursue a reset if possible. How they ace their offseason. Now that the Blazers have swapped Anthony Simons for Drew Holiday, the next order of business is finding a new home for forward Jeremy Grant. Grant missing all but 2 games after March 1st helped Portland avoid reckoning with the fact that he no longer merits starting at forward ahead of Denny Avdija and Tamani Kamara. Grant still has 3 years and more than $100 million left on his contract, meaning the Blazers might have to incentivize a team to send back a shorter deal in return. One move they should make, get Kamara extended for as long as possible. Portland could add 3 years and $64.5 million to his minimum team option for 2025 to 26, or decline that and offer $89.2 million over 4 years. Indiana made the latter move with Andrew Nembhard last summer and surely doesn't regret it. How they aced their offseason. On draft night, Bulls GM Mark Eversley told reporters he didn't want to skip steps in his team's semi-rebuild. That's a prudent approach for a franchise that has lacked direction for most of the past decade. The Bulls would look foolish if they made any aggressive win-now moves to try to take advantage of a lackluster Eastern Conference field. They're not as close to contention as their 17-10 record after the All-Star break might suggest. One move they should make, extend restricted free agent guard Josh Giddey, who averaged nearly a triple-double from mid-February on. But Chicago, which has retained Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and Patrick Williams at inflated numbers in recent offseasons, shouldn't go overboard with its offer to Giddey, who still has obvious limitations in a playoff setting and likely won't have many outside suitors. Only Brooklyn has meaningful cap space, and the Nets shouldn't have much interest in Giddey after using multiple first-round picks on players at the same position. If the Bulls offer climbs into, say, Emmanuel Quickley's range, 5 years, $175 million, they've made a mistake. How they ace their offseason. Find a way for Bradley Beal to take a contract buyout. Even if Beal did not have a no-trade clause, his $110 million salary owed over the next 2 seasons would be difficult to move. If Beal reduces his salary by $28 million, the amount of a 2-year non-tax mid-level exception, and then get waived, Phoenix will not only save over $200 million, but also operate under both aprons. The Suns would then be allowed to take back more money in a trade, and most importantly, aggregate contracts sent out. One move they should make: sign Chris Paul to a 1-year, $3.6 million contract. How fitting would it be for the Suns to sign the player they traded for Beal? The 40-year-old Paul could not only be a mentor to Jalen Green, but also help Phoenix on the court. In addition to playing 82 games in 2024-25, Paul has averaged at least 7 assists in 4 of the past 5 seasons. How they ace their offseason. My ideal offseason surely would not have included a trade for Jordan Poole, though making that move did give the Pelicans access to their non-taxpayer mid-level exception to add depth. In particular, New Orleans can use as many players with size to play power forward as possible given Zion Williamson's injury history. The trouble is free agency offers few such players. One move they should make a run at Sacramento forward Jake LaRavia, who is in an unusual situation. Because the Kings acquired LaRavia after the Grizzlies declined his rookie option, they're limited to offering him a starting salary of $5.2 million. The Pelicans could potentially double that to lure him away. How they ace their offseason. After parting ways with longtime President Masai Ujiri, the Raptors' next move should be reducing salary commitments while developing a better roster blend. For a team that might not be in the playoffs next year, Toronto, with Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickley, and R.J. Barrett, has considerable money on its books. Those 4 players alone are set to make $137 million for 2025-26, which would send the Raptors into luxury tax territory. Dealing Barrett, who will earn nearly $28 million this year, for 2 or 3 players would not only make the team less top-heavy, it would also ease the roster logjam by giving Toronto more digestible salaries to include in future trade talks. One move they should make: trade Barrett for future assets and a couple of smaller contracts. The team is reportedly open to dealing the Southpaw, who is coming off the 2 best seasons of his career. He averaged at least 20 points in both, while logging a career high in assists per game in 2024-25, as he enters his prime. Could Toronto find a club willing to part ways with a future first to add Barrett scoring? If so, such a pick could be helpful in an eventual package if Antetokounmpo decides he wants out of Milwaukee. How they ace their offseason. Above all else, they'll maximize opportunities to collect more assets and ensure that they're at or near the top of next year's draft lottery. This past season was obviously a different story after the Nets got out to a better-than-expected start, even sitting in play-in position as late as December, 20 with an 11-16 mark, that forced them to trade away talent multiple times, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dennis Schroeder, during the season to slow their winning pace. It resulted in the Nets finishing 8 in the lottery. Trading earlier this time around could leave the club better positioned to get a top pick. One move they should make: dealing veteran forward Cameron Johnson, the net with the most market value. As a two-way player and a 39% shooter from 3 for his career, Johnson is a fit for any contending club. Aside from trading Johnson, while ensuring that there are enough seasoned vets to help mentor their record-breaking 5 first-round picks, the Nets' priority should be to sign restricted free agent and leading scorer Cam Thomas to a reasonable deal going forward. How they ace their offseason. Under new management, the Hornets have adopted a slow, steady approach to their rebuild, and that seems unlikely to change this summer. Charlotte traded Mark Williams again on draft night, picking up 2 first-round picks in the process, and addressed the dearth of shooting with draftees Con Newpel and Liam McNeely. The 2025-26 roster looks mostly set, and the main offseason work will be figuring out how to coax better health outcomes from LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, who combined for just 74 games in 2024-25. One move they should make: announce Moussa Diabate as the starting center. The former Clipper signed a 2-way contract with the Hornets last year, and he was quietly impressive in 71 games, 8 starts, with Charlotte. When the 6'11" Frenchman shared the court with Ball, the Hornets outscored their opponents per PBP stats. When that duo also played with Miller, the Hornets had a plus 5.4 net rating. Sure, that came in a small sample, but the Hornets need all the positives they can get. Diabate is on a non-guaranteed contract for next season, but with Williams gone, he should seize the starting center role. How they ace their offseason. Originally, it was Ace Bailey reporting the Summer League, but that changed when he landed in Salt Lake City on Saturday. It might sound simple, but the development of Bailey, Walter Clayton Jr., and recent draft picks Isaiah Collier, Cody Williams, Keone George, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Taylor Hendricks will play a critical role in how competitive the Jazz can be next season. One move they should make: sign Walker Kessler to a 5-year, $130 million extension. Utah could have more than $70 million in cap space in 2026, and despite the low $14.6 million free agent hold, the Jazz can be aggressive. Kessler is the first player to average at least 2 blocks per game in each of his first 3 NBA seasons since Tim Duncan from 1997 to 2000. Kessler also averaged career highs in points, 11.1, rebounds, 12.2, and assists, 1.7, and shot an NBA best 66.3% from the field. How they aced their offseason. Washington already made perhaps its biggest move, flipping Jordan Poole to New Orleans for guard C.J. McCollum. The Wizards figure to have about $90 million in cap space next summer, some of which they might use by turning the expiring contract of McCollum, Chris Middleton, and Marcus Smart into longer deals. One move they should make: call the Nuggets about swapping Middleton for Michael Porter Jr. and Dario Saric. That move would cut Denver's tax bill this coming season and save the Nuggets $40.8 million in 2026 to 27 salary. Denver certainly might need a better replacement for Porter to give up its 2032 first-round pick, but it'd be worth the call.
So, I know I might be extremely late to this thing, simply because we watched the NBA Finals, and I couldn't give you guys my intake because we closed the studio for the week because I was going on vacation, right? So I said when we got back here in the studio, back with the next episode of Broco Podcast, I will be talking about, you know, my thoughts with the NBA Finals. Of course, if you guys don't know, sadly, the NBA season has concluded. We have to wait until the next spring, summertime for the next new season. So here's what I thought with the NBA Finals. It was the Indiana Pacers versus the Oklahoma City Thunders. Very, very good game. I watched the game throughout. And first of all, I'll say this, right? And I think I said this on many, many episodes before. But when it comes down to my sports teams, I dabble into the Atlanta Hawks, right? I like the Atlanta Dream. Like any Atlanta team, I try to like, because obviously we're headquarters here in Atlanta. We love Atlanta. So I got to root for the home teams. But when you're going outside the home teams, guys, I like to vouch for a lot of teams, right? I vouch for the Celtics. I actually do like the Celtics. I like the Lakers. But my other favorite team is the Pacers. Right, I like the Pacers simply because I like the color of their uniforms. I think Tyrese Halliburton is an extraordinary player. No matter if you are not a big fan of Halliburton or not, I'm a big fan of him. Right, I think he can do it really, really well. I think he can really do the point guard thing really well and really throw up some buckets. Right, he can get it done. But boy, howdy, I was upset. Of course, with not even a full hour into the game, right? It was the first 20 minutes, Tyrese Halliburton, he tore his Achilles. I knew, and a lot of Pacers fans knew, when Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles heel, I knew it was over. I knew it was over for the Pacers, because it's not to say, look, it's not to say that all the other players are not good, right? It's not what I'm saying. It's not like, you know, we're just relying on Halliburton so many times when it comes down to it. But I was really rooting for it because it's just one of those things that, you know, it is quite amazing. And then there's a lot of money behind them, right? So my sources are coming from ESPN. We rely on ESPN.com with a lot of like stats and stuff, which is pretty cool. I love, you know, from Iowa State, his salary, based on ESPN, by the way, $42 million, right? $42 million cap off when it comes down to it. So that way, you know, you're a good player when you're making that much money, first and foremost. And to see that he tore that Achilles heel injury on the finals, we knew that the Pacers might have a little bit of struggle, right? Because he's the point guard. He's the leader. He's one of the main people, the mainstays of the Pacers, right? So when I saw that happening, I was really, really upset because, I was rooting for the Pacers game at 7. Obviously, we all know that OKC won that game and won the championships. I did see in Oklahoma City, they threw the team a parade. I think they threw that parade real quick too, right? They just threw that parade real, real quick right after. I think a lot of cities, when they think their team's going to win, they prepare for a parade and have it paid for and everything. And then when you go there, it's already ready to go. You're ready to celebrate. I wonder, did the Indiana Pacers City, Indianapolis, they had it to where they booked and paid for a parade, and to know that they didn't win, they got to turn all that stuff back, right? So very, very upset when it came down to it, because it was just one of those things that, I was rooting for that team. I was rooting for it. And it's not to say, too, that any Oklahoma City Thunders are not good, right? I think this is their first championship ever, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So it is one of those things that is very, very important for OKC, right? OKC had a great season. We got to give them that. They had, obviously, they're in the finals. They had a great, great season. So they trained really hard. They played really hard in this bout. I got to say, though, this game was actually a close game. I can't say that this was a straight out, and I've said this on podcasts and talk shows before, it just depends on it. Shows really depend if it was an ass whooping or if it was a legit close match. This wasn't an ass whooping, y'all. This was a close match. It was a lot of heart. It's a lot of stressful moments that Pacers had to deal with now that Halliburton's out of the game indefinitely. He posted on social media that he's in the hospital. Of course, tore that Achilles. He had surgery. He's resting now. But I know it has to be very, very upsetting for him. And it has to be upsetting for his dad, too. Because at the beginning of the game, you had it to where his dad was there cheering him on for the finals, and to see that he's no longer able to play in the game, he's out of the game. Now he has to go and, go see about his son, and then he left the game. He's like, yeah, I can't. After OKC's dunking the buckets and stuff, we can't watch this game anymore, because it was a heartbreaking thing. And this would have been really, really cool for Halliburton to give that championship. Halliburton's been in a lot of media lately, right? He's partnered up with the WWE. I saw with WWE, they got celebrities like him and other ball players are in the 2K game, so that's always a good partnership there. So to know that you didn't win the finals and you're in this game getting a lot of social media push, that has to be hard, right? So that was my intake within the Pacers. It's very, very interesting that this happened, right? I got to chalk it up to, when you are an athlete, and he's skinny too. I ain't gonna lie. Tyrese Halliburton, he's a little skinny. He got muscle, but he's skinny too. So you have to wonder, after 7 straight games, right? Straight games back to back. You're traveling between Indiana, Greenridge Fieldhouse in Indiana, and the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City, right? You're traveling between the two for championship in the game series. These players are exhausted. These players are exhausted. So you have to really chalk it up to pure exhaustion, a full NBA season, right? A lot of social media push, has to go to a lot of press conference, traveling, it wears on you. Now, the story of it is, a lot of people did say, can anything be done with the rise of Achilles injuries in the NBA? And that's a great story. That's a great question that I asked to our fan base, because over this season alone, we've had a lot of torn Achilles. Well, I would say between that and the WNBA as of this season, there's been a lot of torn Achilles, right? And it's one of those things that maybe, I think trainers for these sports teams, they're doing all they can, right? You got to say that, all of these trainers, they're doing the very, very best they can, guys. But the rise of it is going to be very, very troublesome for a lot of teams, right? Because the hamstring, right? If you torn that hurts. It's not going to tickle, right? And then you're going to be out for months. And even if it's a deep torn Achilles, you might be out for a year, right? So I feel like there's something that can be done with torn Achilles. I think rest is one thing about it. One thing, scheduling games out so that way teams don't have games back to back to back like that. They have time to rest and recover, ice up, and get ready and train for the next one. And I guess it just depends on how well the players are training, right? these ball players. Again, there's a lot of expectations. Tyrese Halliburton, as of ESPN.com, $47 million. He has to work. If somebody offered me $40 million, hell, if anybody offered me $2 million, I'll work my ass off. I might suck at it because I've never been good at playing basketball, but I'll do it for $2 million, right? So, very very interesting story to tell. Like I say, congratulations, because we didn't do we didn't do a review because we were on vacation. Congratulations to OKC. I kid you guys not, this is not a story. This is a true story. I was on the plane ride to Punta Cana, and I sat next to this lovely couple, very lovely couple. Little, obviously, they look like they could be. They look like they could be, the age of my parents, right, in their 50s, and they are traveling, and they asked me, where I'm from. I said, yeah, I'm from Atlanta. Well, originally I'm from Macon, but I'm from Atlanta. I'm traveling with some friends on vacation, and I'm like, oh, you guys from Atlanta? And then they said, yeah, no, we're from Oklahoma City. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, and then I joked because we had our joking moment. Like, oh yeah, I don't like y'all team right now. Y'all beat my team, and we had a kiki moment about it. So, true fans of basketball, like I say, congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunders. Congratulations to the Pacers, because one hell of a run. I watched a lot of social media platforms. LeBron James tweeted about the torn hamstring. Pat McAfee, obviously, he's a big Indiana Pacers guy, and I follow him closely on social media too. So it is one of those things that happens, and I hope that Tyrese Halliburton gets a speedy recovery and stronger and faster for the next season to give us a chance for another championship. And congratulations to all the NBA teams. I know some people have some better teams than others, but congratulations to all the teams. We have a great season, and we just wait for the next season, right?
Next on the podcast, we talk baseball. Detroit versus everybody. Are the Tigers the team to beat in MLB? If you picked the mighty Los Angeles Dodgers to be the first team to win 50 games this MLB season, you weren't alone. You were also wrong. If you picked the Detroit Tigers, congratulations. We're not sure we believe you, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The Tigers won their 50th game on Tuesday, a full day before the Dodgers, and they got their thanks to big contributions all season from ace Tarek Skubal, the red-hot Riley Green, and the resurgent Javier Baez, among many others. But are they really as good as they've played so far? Are they even the American League's best team? Could they defeat the Dodgers, or whichever team comes out of a stacked National League, in the World Series? We asked MLB experts Bradford Doolittle, Tim Keown, Jeff Passand, and David Schoenfield to tackle all things Tigers before they play host to the Minnesota Twins on Sunday Night Baseball, 7 p.m. ESPN2. Who is the biggest threat to Detroit in the AL? And would you take the Tigers to beat them in an ALCS showdown? Doolittle. The Yankees still have the AL's best roster and remain the favorites in the circuit, even with the Rays and Astros closing in fast on both Detroit and New York. This feels like a season in which, by the time we get to October, there's not going to be a clear-cut front-runner in the AL. But if we zero in on a possible Tigers-Yankees ALCS, I like the interchangeability of the Detroit staff, which we saw in action late last year. Max Fried and Skubal cancel each other out, so it really comes down to the number of favorable matchups A.J. Hinch can manipulate during a series of games between two postseason offenses likely predicated on timely multi-run homers. It's obviously the Yankees, unless it's the Rays. Tampa's lineup is deep and insistent, and the pitching staff is exactly what it always seems to be. Consistent, stingy, and comprised of guys only hardcore fans can identify. They're really, really good. By far the best big league team playing in a minor league ballpark. It's still the New York Yankees. They've got Aaron Judge. They've got Fried and Carlos Rodon for 4 starts. They've got better lineup depth than Detroit. Who wins the theoretical matchup could depend on how aggressively each team pursues improvement at the trade deadline. Suffice to say, the Tigers will not be trading Jack Flaherty this year. I was going to say the Yankees as well, but as I'm writing this, I just watched the Astros sweep the Phillies, holding them to 1 run in 3 games. As great as Skubal has been, Hunter Brown has been just as good, if not better. A couple of Brown-Skubal matchups in the ALCS would be super fun. Throw in Framber Valdez, and you have 2 aces plus one of the best late-game bullpens in the biz. The offense, nothing great. The difference maker is clear: getting Yordan Alvarez healthy and hitting again. Who is the biggest threat to Detroit in the NL? And would you take the Tigers to beat them in a World Series matchup? The Dodgers are the team to beat, full stop. In many ways, their uneven start to the season, caused by so many pitching injuries, represents the lower tier of L.A.'s possible range of outcomes. And the Dodgers still are right there at the top of the majors. I can't think of any good reason to pick against them in any 2025 competitive context. In a Tigers-Dodgers World Series, which would somehow be the first one ever, I just can't see the Tigers scoring enough to beat L.A. 4 times. The Dodgers. No need to get cute here. The Dodgers are the biggest threat to just about everything baseball-related. And while the matchup would be a hell of a lot of fun, filled with all those contradictory juxtapositions that makes a series riveting, let's just say L.A. in 7. It's still the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're getting healthier, with Shohei Ohtani back on the mound and still hitting more home runs than anyone in the National League. Will Smith is having the quietest .300/.400/.500 season in memory. Freddie Freeman is doing Freddie Freeman things. Andy Pages is playing all-star caliber baseball. Even Max Muncy is hitting now. And yes, the pitching has been a problem, but they've got enough depth, and enough minor league depth to use in trades, that they're bound to find 13 more than viable arms to use in October. A Tigers-Dodgers showdown would be a classic original 16 matchup, and those always feel a little more special. Although we wouldn't want to see a rematch of the 1945, 1935, 1908, or 1907 World Series between the Tigers and Cubs. Those were split 2-2, so we need a tiebreaker. But I digress. Yes, the Dodgers are still the team to beat in the NL, especially since we've seen the Phillies' issues on offense, the Cubs' lack of pitching depth, and the Mets' inconsistency. The Dodgers have injuries to deal with, but there is still time for Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and everyone else to get back. There have been 2,664 pitchers who have made at least 30 career starts since 1901. 3 of those pitchers, or 1 out of every 888, own a career ERA below 2.00. 2 of them are Hall of Fame deadball era greats, Ed Walsh, 1.82, and Addy Joss, 1.89. The third is Pittsburgh Pirates superstar Paul Skeens. The chances of Skeens, who has made just 39 career starts, remaining in that class are slim. That's nothing against him. It's the reality of math and the era in which he plays. The careers of Joss and Walsh overlapped in the American League from 1904 to 1910. When the aggregate ERA was 2.61. The collective ERA in the majors since Skeens debuted is 4.04. This season, Skeens' 1.85 ERA leads the majors, and he's first among all pitchers in B-WAR, 4.4. The latter figure is actually tops among all National League players, period. The current numbers generated by my EXE system and the futures at ESPN bet both mark Skeens as a solid favorite to win his first NL Cy Young Award. Incidentally, Skeens' one-loss record for the woeful Pirates is a meager 4-6. Should we care? Yes, we should care about pitcher wins. One-loss records for pitchers are no longer part of the evaluative conversation. So if your response to the previous question was no, then congratulations for paying attention. If your response was anything else, then it's almost certainly because you're in a fantasy league that still uses pitcher wins, not because you think Skeens' record actually tells us anything about his true value. But what if I could tell you this and prove it? Skeens' real one-loss record is 11-5, the win total tied for the third most in the majors. I'm going to explain how I got there, but first, let me explain why I think it matters. Just to illustrate how starting pitchers were written about for most of baseball history, I pulled up the 1980 MLB preview from Sporting News and went to the page where the Pirates, defending champs at the time, were analyzed. Here's a bit on their pitching. The Pirates last year won without a 15-game winner. The staff won in bunches. 5 pitchers won 10 or more games. There were no other pitching statistics in the staff outlook. No ERAs, no strikeout rates, nothing about walks. This was it. This is just how pitchers were discussed back then. It's good that we understand how to assess pitchers now at a deeper level, and, Even back in 1980, people like Bill James were already doing it. But pitching wins still meant something, as one of the baseball statistics James might allude to as having achieved the power of language. That is, to describe a pitcher as a 20-game winner had real meaning. It was an avatar for quality. And if someone was a 5-time 20-game winner, that was an avatar for greatness. Pitcher wins have always been an imperfect measure, but its flaws have ballooned over time as the game and the responsibilities of the starting pitcher have evolved. Last season, 41.3% of decisions went to relievers. 100 years ago, that number was 18%. A good win statistic clears away a lot of contextual noise. In every game, you have 2 starting pitchers on opposing teams pitching on the same day, at the same ballpark, and in the same weather conditions. While starters will never admit they are competing against each other, "My job is to get the opposing lineup out," is the standard refrain. They actually are. Their job is to pitch better than the other pitcher, because doing so means giving up fewer runs than him, and if you do that, you win. Well, at least before the bullpens get involved. But a good win stat would filter out that factor too. Take anyone who has ever pitched for the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies have been around for more than 30 years, and it's still exceedingly difficult to make heads or tails of their pitchers, because so much of their data has to be greatly adjusted for ballpark context. And while park effects are necessary and sophisticated, they are also estimates. The Rockies have never had a 20-game winner. The closest was Ubaldo Jimenez, who won 19 in 2010, when he also became one of 2 Rocky starters to top 7B WAR. The other was Kyle Freeland in 2018. Jimenez is Colorado's career ERA leader as well, with a mark of 3.66. Every other qualifying Colorado starter in franchise history is at 4.05 or above. Thus, when we talk about the best pitchers of the current era, Rockies pitchers are almost always going to be left out of the conversation. Their numbers just don't seem telling or comparable. This is where a better win statistic would be so useful, because whatever the precise effects Coors Field might have on a game's statistics on any given day, a good win stat would be comparing 2 starters on that field in almost exactly equal conditions. If we do it that way, maybe the Rockies do get some 20-game winners on their ledger. Is such a win stat possible? A better way to win? For me, the pitcher win should strictly be the domain of a starting pitcher. This dictum is clouded by the use of openers to start games and both pitchers, who are used like starters, but just not at the outset of games. For now, let's try not to think about that. The question about each game I want to answer is this: which starting pitcher was better in that game? The starter who becomes the answer to that question gets the win, the other gets the loss. And that's all. It's as simple as that. Every starter in every game gets a win or a loss, and no decisions don't exist. Well, the no decisions would still exist, because I'm not proposing that we erase traditional one-loss records from the books. There's too much history attached. Early Win is remembered in part for clinging to his career in pursuit of 300 wins, and he finished with that number exactly. Cy Young is remembered for his unbreakable career record of 511 wins. Likewise, Jack Kesbro's claim to immortality is that he owns the modern single-season record of 41 wins. We don't want to erase those things. We want to add to our understanding of starting pitchers. Something I've proposed on a number of occasions is to use James' game score method to assign wins and losses. In fact, I've tracked game score records for several years, and for this piece, I expanded my database back to 1901 to see how the historical record might look. There are other game score methods, but I like James' version for its simplicity, though the modified version created by Tom Tango for MLB.com has the same virtue. With either, you can look at a pitching line and easily calculate the game score in your head, once you've got the formula down. If you can't do that calculation, study more math. I also would try to account for short, opener-style outings. I use James' version, but dole out a heavy penalty for going fewer than 4 innings. To avoid ties, when the starters end up with the same game score, you can give the W to the starter on the winning team. Awarding pitcher wins like this isn't perfect. The conditions for the starters aren't truly equal because the quality of the lineups they face won't be the same. When Skeens beat Yoshinobu Yamamoto earlier this season, For example, his task against the Los Angeles Dodgers lineup was a bit more difficult than Yamamoto's figured to be against Skeen's teammates. Likewise, the quality of the defenses behind opposing starters won't be the same in any given contest. Despite those disparities, the mandate for both starters is identical. Outpitch the other guy. And you know what? The game score method of assigning wins and losses to assess the success of that assignment works pretty well. How game score wins would change history. Let's call a game score win a GSW and a game score loss a GSL. Do you know who owns the single-season record in GSW? It's Kespro still. In fact, his 1904 feat looks just as impressive by this method. Here are the top 5 seasons by GSW. Jack Kespro, 40-11, 1904. Christy Mathewson, 35-9, 1908. Iron Joe McGinnity, 34-10, 1904. Mathewson, 34-12, 1904. Ed Walsh, 34-15, 1908. Still all deadball guys, sure, but that's just the top of the leaderboard. There have been 21 30-win seasons by the traditional wins method since 1901, but only 3 during the last 100 years. Lefty Grove, 31 in 1930. Dizzy Dean, 30 in 1934. And Denny McLain, 31 in 1968. By the game score method, the list of 30-game winners grows to 36, and it's not so dusty. 12 of them land in the expansion era since 1960, and we even get 2 30-win seasons during the wild card era since 1994. Here are the most recent instances. 33 GSWs, Sandy Koufax, twice, 1965 and 1966, and Mickey Lolich, 1971. 32, Steve Carlton, 1972, for a last-place team. Denny McLain, 1968. 31, Koufax, 1963. 30, Whitey Ford, 1961. Juan Miracle, 1968. Jim Palmer, 1975. Ron Guidry, 1978. Randy Johnson, twice, 2001 and 2002. The Big Unit. Johnson won the last 2 of 4 consecutive NL Cy Young Awards in 2001 and 2002, during which his combined traditional record was 45-11. His combined game score record is 60-9. When you go down the list to 29 wins, the roster is just as interesting and more recent. Here are the last 5 instances. Dwight Gooden, 1985. Mike Scott and Roger Clemens, 1986. Kurt Schilling, 2001. Garrett Cole, 2019. I mean, are we having fun now or what? Imagine those seasons and the coverage that would go with their pursuit of 30 wins. Schilling would be trying to match Johnson to give the Arizona Diamondbacks a pair of 30-game winners. And Cole, only a few years ago, would have been racing for 30 wins in his last season for the powerhouse Houston Astros in advance of free agency. Wouldn't you have liked to have had this headline at ESPN to react to that winter? Yankees signed 29-game winner Cole to $324 million deal. None of this is a product of a fantastical what-if scenario. This is all based on what these pitchers actually did, just framed and measured a little differently. And I think it adds to their accomplishment, or lack thereof in the case of Homer Bailey's 0-20 season in 2018, and improves the conversation about pitching, which now is too bogged down by statistical complexities that many or even most fans roll their eyes at. Advanced measures would still matter a great deal, of course, but barroom conversations about pitching would be much improved. I imagine somehow sitting down for one more baseball chat with my late grandfather, who was one of the people who taught me about the sport. If I told him something like, Garrett Cole had 7.8 WAR last year and a 28% strikeout rate, it wouldn't mean anything to him. But if I told him, Garrett Cole won 29 games last year, he'd understand that and would not be misled about what it meant. Thinking about pitcher wins in this way brings the past back into conversation with the present. For all of the differences between what was expected of Christy Mathewson in 1904 and Tarek Skubal in 2025, the core mission outlined by this framework is identical: to outpitch your opponent when you take the mound. This becomes evident when you look at the list of those who have reached 300 career game score wins since 1901, a roster of greats that covers every period of the modern era and is about to grow by one. For his career, Skeens is now 30-9 by the game score method. He's 15-9 by the traditional formulation. Same number of losses, but double the wins. Which version is more indicative of Skeens as a pitcher? It's cherry-picking to home and on Skeens, but his game score log translates to this. Skeens has pitched better than his starting opponent 76.9% of the time as a big leaguer, despite the treachery of the punchless offense behind him. Now let's do one more list. Here are the 3 highest game score winning percentages, minimum 30 career starts, since 1901. 1. Paul Skeens, .769, 30-9. 2. Nick Maddox, .722, 52-20. 3. Smokey Joe Wood, .722, 114-44. Wood is historically prominent, while Maddox, who pitched for the Pirates 115 years ago, is not. Still, since Maddox popped up, I have to share this late-in-life quote from him because it so typifies the old-timer mindset. These guys today aren't pitchers, they're throwers. Why, in my day, I'd throw one so fast past that guy Ralph, kinda he'd get pneumonia from the wind. Skeens is a pitcher and a thrower, a budding all-time great who is in conversation with pitchers who retired decades before he was born. If Skeens stays healthy, knock on wood, and his career builds, we can marvel at his accolades and statistical achievements. But will we ever say, Skeens has a chance to be a 60-WAR guy, and expect that to resonate? Maybe someday. But wouldn't it be more fun to track how many 20 win, or even 30 win, seasons he can rack up? Wouldn't it be more fun to count down his progress to 300 wins, which he is never going to sniff by traditional wins, unless the game itself changes dramatically? Wouldn't it be more fun to align pitching's present with pitching's past? Wins have always been the currency of baseball in general, and of pitching in particular. It's just that up until now, pitching wins have been an unstable currency. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes, guys. So on Bro Code Podcast, presented by iHeartMedia, great sponsors and partners of ours for sure when it comes down to the Bro Code Podcast episode on Monday, welcoming everybody back into the office. Very, very good to see everybody come back, and everybody was so excited to come back, right? Everybody was just ready for podcasting and production, and, we were all on vacation. So while I was able to come back on time from the Atlanta airport debacle, the delays and the storms and what have you, I was able to catch the latest WWE event, and that was Night of Champions. If you guys know, you know, I am a huge WWE fan. I cannot wait for July 13th because, yes, I will be in the building at State Farm Arena for WWE's Evolution. Very, very excited for that, for Evolution, simply because my ticket wasn't that pricey. I wish we got sponsored with WWE to pay me to come to these events and talk about it. WWE, if you'd like to sponsor our show, I would love to do that. But when I'm not sponsored, yes, I'm just a normie. I have to go buy my ticket. So the tickets were actually decent priced, and I will be in the building for the event July 13th. That is WWE's Evolution. That is the all-women's pay-per-view event. Very, very stoic about that. I'm very, very excited for that. The reason why we're going to go to that show, and I'm not trying to be mannish or anything, I love women, right? So I'm going to watch these women perform. But we're big avid fans of WWE. Tickets are reasonably priced, and it'll be a great thing to talk about on our shows. So I can't wait for that. Night of Evolution's coming July 13th. 2025. Jackson, I'm a little nervous because I know you are a Beyonce fan. I'm scared for that day because Beyonce will be in town. Beyonce will be in town the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, right? I think I got my dates right. So that's going to be some traffic. We ended up paying VIP parking because it is going to be a madhouse that weekend. So WWE, Saudi Arabia, Night of Champions. A lot of people ask me, probably will put in the comments too, why am I not going to Saturday night's main event? Them tickets are high. They high. You know why they high? Because Bill Goldberg is going to be in the building. That's why them tickets high. So again, WWE Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Night of Champions Premium Live event. Saturday, I was able to catch it. Finally, after getting home after a 22-hour delay on flights and staying on flights. I gotta say, this pay-per-view was okay. You know, it was all right. I gotta say, the matches that were announced, and I have my notes here on my tablet. You had the Undisputed WWE Championship match, CM Punk versus Cena. John Cena. King of the Ring tournament final. Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. And with the Cena whole debacle, I got to give a shout out to my pops because I was on the phone with my dad and I was on my way home from the airport and I was joking with him about the whole airport debacle. He laughed at me. But he brought up some good stuff that I'm going to mention here in a few seconds. The Queen of the Ring tournament, Asuka versus Jade Cargill. King of the Ring tournament, Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. United States Championship match, Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. The Street Fight match, Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez. And Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross. Now, the first match, I want to say it was the King of the Ring final, Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. I got to say, I like to see that happen. I like to see two superstars that were part of the legacy, the legacy team, right? It was Randy Orton, Ted DiBiase Jr., and Cody Rhodes. I love to see, back then they were tag teams, and now they're a little bit older, they're a little bit wiser, they have a little bit more ring experience. I mean, Randy Orton even at that time had plenty of ring experience, but now, obviously, Cody Rhodes is having more of ring experience, right? So the King of the Ring was dated for the Undisputed WWE Championship. So what that means is whoever would have won, by the way, Cody Rhodes won that one. Whoever wins that match will face John Cena or CM Punk. It was John Cena because John Cena won. We'll get to that in a second. They'll face off at SummerSlam. SummerSlam is quite exciting for me simply because when it comes down to SummerSlam, they have it to where SummerSlam is almost like WrestleMania, right? They're going to be at MetLife in New Jersey, right? So you can only imagine and it's a 2-day event. They're treating SummerSlam like a WrestleMania. And it worked, right? SummerSlam the last few years, it worked, right? It was, I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, SummerSlam was in Cleveland, Ohio, where the Browns play, right? That stadium. And just to see the amount of success from that, it was quite amazing to see for a SummerSlam, not even a WrestleMania, a SummerSlam. So very excited for that. There was a lot of moments. There was a lot of RKO surprise moments. This match was pretty good and pretty decent for what they gave us. It was really good to see the grueling match of both men as they're frustrated to take each other down because they both want the crown. They both want that title of King of the Ring. They want to get the championships. Of course, obviously, Cody Rhodes wants to get his reclaimed belt back from, he had a whole 1.5 year reign of being champion and he lost it to John Cena at WrestleMania. He wants that thing back. Randy Orton wants to fight for it simply because he's going for number 15. Obviously, I think we got to give Randy Orton his 15 sooner rather than later, right? Because he can do it. I think Randy Orton can do it. I can't wait to see 10 years from now, 20 years from now, to see who's going to be John Cena's 17-time championship record, right? Can't wait to see it. Of course, sponsored by the Bleacher Report, they give it a B+. One thing that they want to say that the main takeaways here, the one thing is for sure and certain, the Saudi fans loved their WWE. The fans created an unbelievable atmosphere for Orton's entrance, making that 2 for 2 for Cody equal goosebumps interested. The second point that we want to bring up, and I'm reading notes here, if Orton did not legitimately injured his back, it was an odd choice to lay out the match with Cody Rhodes as the aggressor and the Viper fighting underneath a nice change of pace. Now, when it comes down to the notes here, but odd nonetheless, the consistent stubbornness over the last 2 years by WWE stars to not wear the crown that they just battled for exhaustion is hilarious. I do agree with that note. They used to, where if the King of the Ring, when they win the crown, they will hold it up, but then they will put it on their head and do a pose. Don't know why WWE don't allow them to do that no more. Don't get it. Now, you had the Riyadh Boulevard street fight, Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez. they give their match a B when it comes down to it. It was a gruesome match. It was a lot of moments. Roxanne Perez does make her appearance as the kind of like the interference there. Obviously, this was a street fight, Jackson, so it wasn't a no disqualification when it comes down to it. It was a good battle all throughout. Both women, Rhea and Raquel, they look great in the ring. They look good in their ring gear. I do like it that, you're in a different country, you're in a different culture. You have to cover that thing up, cover all of it up. So it's really, really cool to see that. I really love the idea of these two ladies going at it. There was a lot of oh shit moments when it comes down to it. Ripley ripped the ever loving hell out of Rich Rodriguez with a stabbing, with a studded belt. So we saw it was like, pow, pow. She was getting that whipping, right? I remember when I was a kid, I would get whoopings. Not like that. That's a little gruesome. But the whoopings when it comes down to it. So they gave it a B. The Sami Zayn Karrion Cross match, didn't care too much for. I'm a big fan of Sami Zayn. I just think they're not using him right, in my opinion. I think it's time for him to put a belt on him. Maybe not the WWE Championship belt, but put a belt back on him. Because the fans love him. They love his audience. They love his theme song. Let's put the belt back on him. Sooner rather than later. Karrion Kross, not a fan of him. Not a fan of the long, weird entrance that he does with Scarlett. It's the weirdest. It is the longest and weirdest entrance ever. I guess that's part of the gimmick. I just don't like his character. I don't like... And he's very talented, by the way, wrestler-wise. But his character, his gimmick, I'm just not a fan of. But it's good to see that Zayn comes out to it. Bleacher Report gives it a C+ for sure. Not a fan. I'm just not a huge, huge fan when it comes down to it. Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa. I did not see this one coming. Obviously, they give this match a C+. Sikoa defeated Fatu for the title with some interruptions of... Tiny Tonga? Okay. Tiny Tonga and somebody else that was interviewing as well. JC Mateo interfered too. I forgot his name at first. Look. This is my gripe with this. You put a belt on Jacob Fatu that can cut a promo amazingly, first and foremost. When Jacob Fatu cuts a promo, it's funny as hell. It's comedic. It's a lot of great things when it comes down to Jacob Fatu cutting a promo, and it's funny, and it's like he's rapping. It's like he's spitting bars. But see, let me tell you, he won the belt at Money in the Bank, and that was not too long ago. I would have loved for them to keep the U.S. Championship belt on Jacob Fatu just a little bit longer. Like, I like it when he do that. I mean, I wish I could do that, but I can't do how he do it. But Jacob Fatu is the gimmick, and he can sell it. Solo Sikoa, good wrestler. I think he's overacting, in my opinion. But you put the belt on him too soon, right? And maybe they had to do that because after, WrestleMania and after everything, Solo Sikoa lost, with Roman Reigns, and that was a whole debacle there. Solo Sikoa had to do his thing, and, he hasn't won a belt. He's been in and out, right? So I get that part, but I would just have Jacob Fatu hold the belt a little longer. Moving on, Queen of the Ring, Asuka versus Jade Cargill. I'm always going to be a fan of Jade Cargill when it comes down to it because it's really quite amazing when it comes down to, just her all out whipping, right? All out being her thing, all out doing what she needs to do when it comes down to her performance. I do think there's a lot more skill that she has to do when it comes down to her championship reign. She has a lot of moves that she has to perform. It's a lot of matches she has to do. And it has to be that grueling match that I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for, from Jade Cargill, to be the top winner, the top spot, right? And I want her to be prepared for that because we might see Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair, right? We might see that in the near future. And that's what I want to see. Asuka, she gave us a good match as well. So Asuka, every time you put Asuka in the ring, though, she's quite amazing what she does. You know, the flips, the turns, the moves, the jump off the ropes, the unique positions, you know, all of these things. I would say Asuka's more of a strategic wrestler. And there is a such thing. You can have a quick wrestler, a fast wrestler, a slow wrestler, a brawn wrestler, and a strategic wrestler. And that's what you see. You have Asuka as the strategic wrestler, and then you have Jade Cargill as kind of like the brawn, the powerhouse, the muscle, right? But then muscle's good, but sometimes muscle may not be able to be your contender. It may not be that variable that you need. Strategic wrestling is what you might need. But like I say, great match all around. Of course, Jade Cargill ended up winning the match, becoming the Queen of the Ring finals. They gave that match a C-. And then the final match was the undisputed WWE Championship match, CM Punk versus John Cena. We did see a glimpse of it on SmackDown where Punk mimicked John Cena's old gimmick, the Thugonomics, Dr. Thugonomics, Word Life, Can't See Me, bam, got my things on my hand. He did that gimmick on Friday night and it worked. But I'm very sad to see this happen to where Cena did defeat Punk, but we kind of saw this coming. They're not going to have the belt off of Cena quite just yet with this farewell tour. And I wanted to bring this up. So I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, I said that I spoke to my pops on my way home from the airport debacle, the delay and all that, right? And Pop, shout out to you because this was a great conversation. He brought up a good, valid point. And this is based off what my pops was saying. And, you know, my pops is right when it comes down to WWE. He knows a lot of things. And this could be true. And they're keeping this sealed tight. So my pops had mentioned to me that John Cena was diagnosed with some sort of skin cancer. And first and foremost, I hope John Cena is well with that because any type of cancer is scary. You know, you don't want to have that cancer up on you. So I feel for the man. I do. But when my dad said that, it kind of makes sense because if you guys notice, John Cena looks really pale. He looks whiter than my Apple Pencil, right? He looks really pale nowadays. Back then, he didn't look that pale. So that kind of makes sense of that to where we didn't really see him perform as much as we thought, right? He's making these appearances and doing his thing, but to actual wrestle and doing all of these moves, we haven't seen that much, right? So what we thought was going to happen was, I thought that we might have saw Randy Orton will be the one to take the belt off. Now, obviously, John Cena, I feel like the belt, he's going to lose the belt mid-September, October-ish, right? Because of the unfortunate diagnosis with skin cancer. He's going to be making less appearances now after Night of Champions simply because he has to go on promo, right? He's on promo with the new movie with Idris Elba, right? So he has to do that promo for that movie, right? He has to do the next season of Peacemaker, right? So he's working, right? Working around WWE's schedule, right? So he has to do what he has to do for the movies and the promo and all of these things. So that's why we're probably not going to see that much of John Cena now after Night of Champions because now promo time for that new movie that's on Prime Video, right? I thought we were going to see Randy take the belt off or to win the crown and have Randy be the one to take the belt from Randy, right? Long way to history. They have a history with each other. But now we're going to see John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. There are moments with Cody Rhodes that I read articles, I read Reddit, I read all of it. What if we saw Cody Rhodes as a heel, right? Because at Night of Champions Finals, we had Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. They're both baby faces right now. Somebody has to be a heel. And my other prediction would be Cody Rhodes, towards the end of it, might turn heel. And that's how you turn John Cena into the babyface, right? Because you got to think about it. The whole 20 years of John Cena's career, John Cena has been the babyface, right? So it'll be behoove of WWE to say, okay, we need to retire John Cena as the babyface. How do we do that? We got to get a heel. Who is left to be a heel? Because I'm seeing a lot of baby faces. One of them got to turn heel. And I think it might be Cody Rhodes that might be the heel. Maybe. Again, I don't work for WWE. I don't have that much in scope on WWE. This is just a fan analyzing here on the show. That's what I think we're going to see. And maybe we might see it sooner because, again, John Cena is booked and busy with movies and shows and the skin cancer thing. He's busy. And he's getting a little bit older, too. So he is booking around WWE, and that has to be exhausting. So that's what I thought we were going to see. And that was the long conversation me and my pops had. And to say that that's going to happen, that could happen. It could be WWE's plan. Or WWE might be a little different way. They might have faked us all out and got another new plan, right? But like I say, it is very, very, it's still a good time to be a WWE fan, I will say. I can't say this was the best pay-per-view ever. I can't say that. But I will say that this was watchable. It was viewable, I mean, and it was very, very good to say and very, very good to see this matchup. I also wanted CM Punk to win the championship because it's time. I'm kind of sick and tired of CM Punk going for the big matches, for championship matches and losing. Like, I'm over that because I know he's better, right? I know he's good. But it seems like every big match that CM Punk is in, he's losing, right? He lost this big match, right? Against John Cena. So I just have high expectations for CM Punk. Maybe he'll get that rematch, maybe not. We don't know. But what's best for business is what's best, for business. And they're running it back for Las Vegas again. So, yeah, WWE got something going. I can't wait to see Raw again. We're going to watch Raw tonight, and I'll do my Raw review on the podcast, K.L.P. Aftermath podcast tomorrow. It's going to be very interesting who's going to commentate. I think Corey Graves is going to be back with Michael. Pat McAfee says that he is done. He's tired. I get it. He has big obligation. He has what was it? I don't know if it was $60 million contract with ESPN, so he's not going to let that go with the Pat McAfee show. I wouldn't either if I had my own brand name show. Which I do, which we all do. But, I wouldn't let that go. So Pat McAfee said, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm still a fan, but to go from Indiana to do Pat McAfee show and to go to wherever we're going for WWE and then to fly back up, and then it's a lot of work. It's a lot. That jet price must be high because ESPN got to pay for it. They got to pay for a jet for Pat McAfee to go to where he need to get to commentate. So I think tonight we're going to see Michael Cole and Corey Graves, or Michael Cole and Wade Barrett, right? I think it's going to be a lot on Wade Barrett to do both shows. I'm sure he'll be willing to do it. Hell, I'd be willing to do it if I was a commentator for WWE. But we might see Corey Graves come back from the trenches of when he tweeted that bad tweet about Pat McAfee and he got sort of demoted. I mean, it's not even a demotion, really. NXT is amazing. But he kind of wasn't on main TV or streaming service because of that. You got to be careful what you say with WWE. You can't just say how you feel. This company policies, company business is business, right? All out, good pay-per-view. It's watchable, available right now on Peacock. Not a sponsor, but available on Peacock, so you guys can take a listen to it. Okay, I guess we'll wrap up the Bro Code podcast here today, guys. Thank you, our fan base audience, for watching the shows. Again, go check out the keynote that came out this morning. I was in the headquarters to talk about what's coming up next with K.L.P. Entertainment for the remaining of 2025. Jackson T, it's always a pleasure to have y'all in the building, some cordial voices, and to give your intake on the latest in sports. So we thank y'all for that as well. And I got to thank iHeartMedia. All of our media platforms, but iHeartMedia has been our big player for years, and we see some viewership there, so we got to send out that shout out for them as well. Stay tuned for more podcasting again tomorrow, K.L.P. Aftermath, and then on Wednesday we'll be back here for Bro Code Podcast, new episode coming out for all streaming services you get your podcasts from. I've been your host, one of the hosts here at Bro Code Podcast, T to my left, Jackson to my right, and we'll catch y'all on the next episode of the Bro Code Podcast. Until then, stay safe, stay swanky, peace.
Welcome to the Bro Code Podcast. Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, cause this is where the real talk begins.